a new article has come out that's showing that the FBI was investigating whether or not Trump was working for the Russians because he fired James Comey. Now, this article says that they were basically looking to investigate Trump for this for a long time, but didn't have a silver bullet that they felt they could use to justify it. But when he fired Comey, that was it. This is going to be ridiculous for multiple reasons, and it's starting to look more and more like this was a setup from the get-go. So you have to understand, everybody in Washington wanted Comey fired. The Democrats, because he came out and announced that Hillary is under investigation 3 days before the election. In fact, that's why we have an IG looking into this, because the Democrats demanded it. And the Republicans, because basically they let Hillary off. He let Hillary off the hook, even though she obviously broke the law. So everyone was recommending his firing. Trump was upset with him primarily because he was telling Trump privately, no, you're not under the investigation for Russia. But the media was reporting day in and day out, Trump's under investigation, Trump's under investigation. So Trump repeatedly is asking Comey, can you please tell the American public that I personally am not under investigation? Nonetheless, he goes to the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who is not seen as a Trump ally or anything like that, and says, can you write me a letter recommending the firing of Comey? Rosenstein says yes, writes that letter. Trump then uses that letter to fire Comey. Now, it's been fishy from the get-go, because what actually happened is Rosenstein wrote the letter to fire Comey. Comey then decides to leak a bunch of information to the press in hopes that a special counsel be brought, because he's saying that somehow Trump's trying to obstruct justice. Rosenstein, who actually recommended the firing of Comey, then basically agrees with this and says, yes, I'll appoint a special counsel, and ends up appointing the person that Comey would have most wanted, his mentor and friend, Robert Mueller. So that seemed fishy from the get-go. Now we know the FBI got in the act as well, and they decided to start an investigation into whether or not Trump was working for Russians merely because he fired Comey. But keep in mind, he fired Comey, everyone wanted Comey fired, and Rosenstein actually recommended firing Comey. Now, the article goes on to say that there were two things that really the FBI thought about this firing that made them want to launch this investigation. The first was, let me see what it says. It was an aggressive move by officials who were confronting the chaotic aftermath. After he was fired, there were two reasons. First was the letter Mr. Trump sent to Mr. Comey about his firing, but never did, in which he mentioned a Russia investigation. In the letter, Mr. Trump thanked Comey for previously telling him he was not a subject of the FBI's investigation. That's it. So he's like, hey, you're fired for X, Y, and Z, but I would like to thank you for telling me in private that I wasn't the target of the Russia investigation. Why is that a reason to assume that Trump might be working for Russians? It makes no sense. Trump's trying to constantly tell the American public, look, the FBI is telling me I'm not under investigation. If this was Obama and his agency's being investigated and he came out and said, look, I've been assured by the FBI that I'm not under investigation, no one would bat an eye. It's not like Trump said in this letter, I'm firing you because I'm trying to stop the Russia investigation. In fact, Comey's admitted that in testimony to Congress that, one, his firing actually did not lead to the investigation into Russia being slowed down. In fact, it actually increased. And second, that Trump told him, hey, if you do find any people that were involved in my campaign that were colluding with Russia like that, go after them, arrest them, charge them. Comey admitted that. So Trump's not saying shut down the Russia investigation. He's saying it's a witch hunt. It's being used to smear him. No one in his campaign worked with Russia. Just like Obama said, we know Hillary's innocent when it came to the investigation into her. No one said, oh, we better investigate Obama. And keep in mind, in that situation, Obama actually was using Hillary's unsecured server. He was emailing back and forth to her on that, knowing full well that it was unsecured. So Obama had every incentive to come out and say, oh, no, that she didn't break the laws, trust me. Yet where was the FBI investigation into Obama then? Oh, there wasn't one. The second reason was the NBC interview with Lester Holt, or I think it was with Holt, I'm not exactly sure, but where Trump said the following: I was going to fire Comey knowing there was no good time to do it. And in fact, when I decided to do it, I just said to myself, I said, the Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. It's an excuse by the Democrats for having lost the election. One, Trump's right. As we can see, there's yet to be one person indicted from Trump's campaign for colluding with Russians in the 2016 election. It's everything before then are process crimes. So Trump was right. This was a witch hunt, as we knew. And second, it shows that what they leave out of it, he's not saying I wanted to end the investigation into Russia. What he's saying is he's upset with how Comey was handling it. And everyone knows that quote, but what they leave out is the second part, where Trump said in the same interview, I might even lengthen out the investigation, but I have to do the right thing for the American people, and he's the wrong man for that position. So Trump's saying, yeah, the Russia investigation as a result of this might even go on longer, but Comey's not the right person to be leading it. But based on that, the FBI said, we're going to investigate Trump. And that's what they said. Now, the reason is they just use that as a silver bullet to go after them. Let's see some of the other reasons that they wanted to investigate Trump. This article talks about it. First, they say it's because people in Trump's inner circle were being investigated for connections to Russia. Yet we know that some of those very same Russians that they had connections to were connected to Hillary people. So why was the FBI only interested in these connections to Trump people from Russia? Second was because they were investigating the Russian hacks of the DNC server. But keep in mind, the FBI was, so they're chomping at the bit to investigate Trump over this, but they couldn't even take the time to actually look at the physical server from the Democrats. Instead of doing their job and saying, and keep in mind, it was the Democrats that asked the FBI to not look at their server, basically demanded they not be allowed to look at the server. Why wasn't the FBI insistent if it's a matter of national security? And then there were other things. Let's read from the article. It said, Mr. Trump had caught the attention of FBI counterintelligence agency when he called on Russia during the campaign to hack the emails of his opponent. No, he didn't. That's a lie. It was an obvious joke. Trump's alluding to the fact that Hillary destroyed subpoenaed emails. And he's saying, geez, wow, the FBI can't see those emails. We're supposed to believe they are all about yoga, though. None classified. Hey, Rush, maybe you have them. Why don't you release them? I'm sure people would be happy to see what's in them. And it was a joke to the fact that these emails were destroyed by Hillary's team, and everybody was claiming that, all these officials were claiming that it was most likely because Hillary had this private server that she actually was hacked by foreign powers like China, Russia, which we later found out is most likely the case. This is clearly not Trump saying, hey, Russia, please hack Hillary. Do they really think an agent of Russia, instead of clandestinely going through some back channel to ask Russia to hack, would get on national TV and tell Russia to hack? That's absurd. Where was the outrage when Obama whispered off mic, hey, after I get elected, I'll have much more wiggle room to do stuff? There was no outrage there. This was clearly a joke. The fact that the FBI took this joke seriously proves that this was a witch hunt from the get-go. Other factors fueled the FBI's concerns, according to people familiar, such as Christopher Steele's dossier. Well, we're told over and over again, because we know the dossier was opposition research where none of the most serious claims have been verified, that, oh no, it wasn't that important. Sure, it was used to help spy on Carter Page, but that wasn't that important. Now we know that this was one of the primary concerns from the FBI to want to look into Trump in the first place. A dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton filled with a bunch of unverified material, both unverified at the time and unverified now to this day. Now, if it wasn't a witch hunt, why isn't anyone charged with working with Russia so far? So let's juxtapose this. So the argument's basically, oh, Trump's team had connections to Russians, which we know that Hillary's team does, as does pretty much any politicians. The sad fact is our political landscape has people connected with our adversaries and people in their governments all the time. But fine, Trump had people connected to Russia, and he, on national TV, told them to hack Hillary. No, he didn't. That's a lie. And the Steele dossier, yeah, we know that that's all unverified. And he mentioned Russia in the letter to firing Comey. Yeah, he just said thanks for saying I wasn't investigating. And he said the Russia investigation would continue on. And the same with the interview. Now, if that's a reason enough to launch this multi-year investigation into Trump, let's go back and look at the Uranium One scandal. We know that we had whistleblowers we know that there were people actually arrested involved in that scandal on the pro-Russian interest side that were committing fraud and bribery and things like that. We know that we have whistleblowers saying that Clintons were going to be the target of that. We know that Bill Clinton personally met Vladimir Putin in secret, and then 2 weeks later was paid $500,000 by a Russian state-owned bank. We know that the agency Hillary was in charge of ended up voting to allow the sale of that uranium. And we know that this was a serious issue that involved the sale of uranium to Russians. We were told that none of the uranium would ever leave the country, but we now know that's not true. Some of the uranium has left. So where was the investigation under there? Oh, that's right. It was Bob Mueller and company that were in the FBI at that point, so they decided not to investigate. It's absolutely ridiculous. They say also in this article that Trump's policies, such as not wanting to sanction Russia or his soft stance on Russia, piqued the FBI's investigation. How absurd is that? The FBI should not be wanting to investigate people based on their policy decisions. Did they want to investigate Obama because he decided to send billions of dollars in pallets of cash in the middle of the night to Iran? No, of course not. It's all garbage and was all used as an excuse to go after Trump. Chuck Schumer told us why. You can't criticize the intel communities or they will go after you. Trump said that he was against a lot of the decisions the intel communities were making, particularly in their investigation of Hillary and a lot of their pushing of pro-war stances. And so that's why he's been going after her, because he was seen as a threat to their power and a potential outsider. We know that from the get-go, that we see people like Strzok that was against him completely from the get-go. We could see that all the leaders of the intel community since then have came out as rabidly anti-Trump. And we know that they were all rabidly pro-Hillary at the same time. So just more evidence to show how much of a witch hunt and a hoax this entire investigation's been. And it's a double standard. Again, they could have applied the exact same reason to investigate Hillary and the administration at that time, Obama's administration, for Uranium One, but they chose not to. So, hey, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be putting out new videos daily. It really helps me if you like and subscribe. I'd like to be able to reach more people, so I thank you for that. And all right, everyone, have a good one.